Sportageous. Sport gets smarter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sportageous Videocast, where we bring you insights into the sporting world straight from athletes, sports biz, sports professionals, and more. Our guest today is none other than the incredible Sarah Jane Perry. She is by far England's premier squash player in recent years. She's a Commonwealth Games silver medalist and recently won the prestigious CIB Black Ball Open in Egypt. Currently, Sarah Jane is ranked number 6 in the world and is also the Professional Squash Association's women's president. She is also our first guest speaker for the Squash Summit on the 5th and 6th of March, so stay tuned. Welcome to the show, Sarah Jane.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward to chatting to you and hopefully getting some squash chat.
Absolutely. It's great to have you on. Look, firstly, congratulations, obviously, on winning the CIB Black Ball Open. I just wanted to get a bit of an understanding. We all know that you won, and it's never easy to do that and to, be at the top. Can you tell me what was it like coming back from 2-0 down? What was going through your mind? It's so challenging in individual sport. There must be some sense of resilience that comes alongside that. So I just wanted to hear a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that springs to mind really is that I've never been one to do things the easy way, and I think this tournament really epitomizes that. Even in my earlier rounds of the tournament, I had quite close matches, and it was a kind of a strange one really, because I was talking to my coach after the matches, and we going, actually, you played pretty well. Like, it was, you just didn't necessarily get what we call the rub of the green and everything like that, but I still won those earlier rounds. So I knew I was playing well, and I'd had a really, really good block of training and everything beforehand. So I was probably the most confident in my conditioning that I've been going into a tournament, which is great for you to have in the bank when you know if you do get to the final, that's going to be your 5th match in 5 days. So that at that point, it's 5 matches in 5 days, and when your shortest match is against Camille Serm, then that's kind of says it all, really. But I think, like the word you mentioned there as well, resilience is something that I've definitely always had in spurts. I think in matches and tournaments, everything like that. But I think this was definitely, again, from a kind of consistency perspective, that the Black Ball Open was definitely my resilience was consistent throughout. No matter what it seemed to throw at me, I just kept trying to find another way and kept trying to up my level and keep my sort of movement and everything going, because that how important that is to my game. So I think I didn't panic at 2-love down. I think if anything, I stopped. Well, not stopped. I don't think I was ever thinking about it, but wasn't thinking about winning or necessarily even losing at that point. I was thinking about setting a marker down for future matches. Hani is a really young player and fantastic player, and I'm sure we're still going to have many battles before I get too old and haggard to carry on. But I really wanted to. I lost to her there 3-2 in March, the year last March. So I just really wanted to set that precedent that if she was going to beat me, it was going to be tough, even if I wasn't playing that well. And that's that at the time in March, I didn't play that well, and I still lost 3-2. So I was going, well, and you never know. And some of the balls she was picking up and things were just outrageous. But I kept saying to myself, well, I don't care how fit she is. I don't care how good her conditioning is. At some point, all of these stopping and starting and changing directions, which is what I what my game kind of is built around, disrupting players' movement. At some point, she's going to have to slow down a little bit. Her brain is going to have to get tired, something. And if I just keep plugging away, keep trying to get a bit better, you never know what will happen. And thankfully, like, when I got into the match and everything, I seem to grow in energy, and my squash and choice of shot and things got better and better. And I still wouldn't say it's, squash wise one of the best matches I've ever played, but I think resilience wise and just and the big points I played throughout the whole tournament were really good, whereas I think sometimes I've been a little bit either gone a bit passive or questioned myself on those a bit before. So I think that's testament to not only my conditioning but the work done off the court with the psychologist and my coach.
Yeah, look, there's so many incredible things to break down there, and one of the highlights of what you just said to me was, building on that idea of resilience, that you're talking to yourself constantly and you're telling yourself that it's not about winning, it's about setting that marker and going from there. When it comes to, I guess, mindset within as a professional athlete, not necessarily what the thinking is, but I'm interested in sort of understanding what you would be telling yourself on a regular basis. Is it something along the lines of let's keep pushing? Is it I know when I need to stop, I know when I need to figure things out? How does that work in your in your mind, and what do you sort of go through in that process?
Firstly, anyone that's watched me play a game of squash knows that I do talk to myself all the time, half the time out loud as well. And so I've got a constant dialogue going. And I think for a while, a few years ago, I probably tried to quieten the dialogue. Whereas I think over the last particularly year, I think, or 18 months, just before the pandemic really kicked in, I think the kind of perspective I was taking was more about controlling the narrative of that rather than trying to stop it. Because I think if I try and stop it, it's still happening in there somewhere, whether I'm conscious of it or not, I think. So for me, it was a better approach to be proactive and control that narrative, and try and work out what works for me. And I think for me personally, positive instruction is the ultimate key. So I think, for example, if you make an error, it's really easy to berate yourself for that error, and something I've done thousands, probably millions of times. But actually trying to be a little bit more objective about the situation, and think and be able to actually use it as a platform to improve even for that next rally. So talking to myself more about, was it the right shot? Yes. Then what can you do to correct it next time? Aim a bit higher. Do I need to aim a bit higher? Did I need to just commit to the shot a bit more? Did I play it at the wrong point? Then change that next time. So rather than go, don't do that again, don't make an error, it becomes right, you need to be more positive putting that ball in, or I need to just aim an inch higher. Simple things like that. And if it's not the right shot, then what was the right shot? Rather than going, I'll stop playing the wrong shot, try and be my own coach on there and go, well, because we haven't been able to have coaching even between games for the last year, but even before that, for a while before that, we weren't allowed to use our phones and things. So you've got to be your own coach in that sense. So if it's not the right shot, what is the right shot? Was it, if it was a good pattern of play and you just chose the wrong shot at the end, then what was the right shot? Play that one next time. But was there other good things from the rally? If you had them pinned in the corners and then you just sit the ball on the top of the tin, there's no point berating yourself. It's not going to. You don't want to create a negative feedback system, negative feedback loop, when actually you've played a really good rally. So I think it's just trying to take the positives out of that and just see what I can do. And I don't like to, although I'm quite a technical player, I don't like to get too technical in the matches either. So I think I like to keep it as really simple, positive instructions about hitting through the ball, getting the ball into the target quickly, things like that, and having hunting the ball to take it early. So I think simple is key.
I like that. On an ending note. I think it sounds great to answer that question. But look, I wanted to sort of move on towards women's squash. And what do you think, I guess, today are the key barriers for women to become professionals and play the game? This is something you've been working on, you've talked about in the past. When I hear things such as, squash clubs being dominated by men and essentially being called men's clubs. And I'm really talking about participation here and building that sort of pathway that enables young women to get into the game and really take it on as potentially a career.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic. I think it's something that's unfortunately quite ever changing. So obviously we had a big boom in squash in the sort of 80s, and the people that started playing then have started to stop playing now. We are losing members I've got a very UK blinded perspective, really. I know in a lot of countries that's not the case, and like you said, a lot of that has been down to those players stopping playing. But there's some real challenges for particularly the female aspect of that. I think there's trying to get the youth in and to stay in the sport is a challenge when you're now not just competing. Maybe traditionally you're competing with other sports, whereas now you're competing with other sports, online sports as well, which are so easily accessible and even much more affordable than, say, video gaming was years ago. Potentially not, but more engaging, perhaps, and interactive and things online. So I know I'm not sure how much of it is the girls' population, but I'm aware that a lot of teenagers forego their phones and chat whilst they're playing Call of Duty and such like. So you're kind of competing with new challenges in that respect. But I think it's the thing is we do get, again, I'm going to be really sort of UK perspective heavy here, but we do get a lot of juniors through the doors. We have some really fantastic schemes getting primary school children introduced to squash in the curriculum, and giving them the opportunity to play. I think it's easier in the UK than, say, the US, where there's small members clubs, and we have leisure centres with courts, and the access is not that expensive, and it's it is easy to get the children in for very low sort of rates to at least try the sport. But there's a huge dropout in the sort of older junior years from the girls' perspective, and I think a lot of that is down to, I think when you're younger, you have these aspirations of being one of the top players, and being. I think the older you get through the age groups, maybe the perspective change on what's successful. So, for example, myself, I remember going to my school teachers when I got into the local county team when I was 11, and going, yes, I'm in the team, and then when I got my first ranking in the country, and it was like, I can't even remember what it was. We'll say 30 something in England under 13, and I was ecstatic with that. But I think the more you know, the kind of more your expectations increase, and I think if you don't then hit that expectations, it's that disappointment, and it's really easy then to go and do something else. There's so many options that it's really easy to just go and do something else. And I think you see, and you don't, and if your friend's doing that, if your friend's already done that, then you don't have the friendship aspect to stay in there as well. Whereas I think on the boys' side, I think generally because there's more of them, and they have probably bigger training friendships and things like that, they can actually, there's less of them drop out, and it's something they keep. It's a social aspect as well, so I think it's keeping that social aspect going, finding that balance between encouraging social junior play as well as competitive junior play, and bringing players up to play in the leagues at the club, not just to play on the elite stage. And I think there is absolutely efforts being made to do that, but I think it's still a real barrier. I know it's something they're particularly looking at in US squash as well, where they have a lot of monetary barriers as well, with, like you said before, the access to courts and things like that. So and the stigma around the sport, which it has an elite stigma around it, which for the country that has the most urban squash programs by far is probably slightly unwarranted, but at the same time it is very much at either end of that spectrum. And it's that bit in the middle where you've got just an extortionate amount of people that could be playing squash. Well, obviously we don't expect them all to play squash, but if we can access a bit of that. But I think just keep plug in the role models and get more women coaching. I know we've definitely had some schemes for that in the UK, and I think that's if you can see it, you can be it. And if you go to the club and it's full of men, then you don't necessarily. Some people like myself, but that doesn't bother. Like I went and I played with loads of boys throughout most of my juniors at my club, but a lot of girls will get put off by that. They maybe think, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. And actually, you see the community clubs in places like Australia that have such a community element, and you see more female coaches, and they, I think that's imperative to that girls starting, staying, and recreational squash.
Absolutely. I mean, here in Australia, we of course have Jenny Duncalf as well, and she was actually so the squash court's about 200 meters from where I am, and she was over for the World Squash Day training late last year. So apparently that was a lot of fun when I went for a hit. A few days later, everyone was really excited and chirpy about it at the club. So it's absolutely, I think that does play a pivotal role to be able to see people such as yourself and your other colleagues in the game to sort of inspire that participation. There's no doubt about it. And of course, moving on a little bit, you of course, as I mentioned earlier, are the women's president at the PSA. And I just love to hear a little bit about what the role entails and what you get up to on that front.
Sure. I think mentioning Jenny Duncalf there, I think I can't start it without saying, you know, she was the women's president before me, right up until she retired. And I think I have a lot to sort of thank her for in that role, and just also, she was one of the people that suggested I put myself forward for the role as well after her. So you can't really get more of an endorsement than that. So hi Jenny, if you're listening. But so I think for me, I've always been someone who, if I've got a problem, I'm not generally just someone to moan about the problem and not do anything about it. So I think it's I kind of I get frustrated when people sometimes do that. So I can't do it myself. So my kind of reasonings for going for the role was that I just I wanted to make sure that players who couldn't speak up or didn't want to speak up for whatever reason were having their voice represented. I think that's still very much the absolute core of how I look at my role as a women's president. And that's what me and Ali Farag, the men's president, that's really what we're trying to mainly achieve, is to listen, get a better understanding of the players, listen to the players, and take their thoughts, questions, feedback, everything, make this bridge between the players and the PSA leadership and the office. As at the end of the day, the PSA is a members association, so they're working for the players. So I think I really tried to open myself up to as many of the players' sort of situations and things as possible, and just try and see the biggest picture possible. I think that's it's not easy as a player, but it's when you start seeing the other side from the boardroom and things as well, it becomes, certain decisions become a lot clearer than when you're a player, and it can't necessarily be communicated to you so easily. And I think there's a lot of players that are great and do have complete faith in PSA, but it's there is also some naturally that are not so, potentially not so trusting, or not don't or their own situation isn't necessarily especially in situations like now in the pandemic, where it's not able to be fair for everyone. And that's the real difficult thing at the moment. I think it's really hard at the moment, because the PSA are working really hard to keep squash at the in the media, keep it going, and bring back the lower levels of the tour whenever it is possible in certain areas. They just had an event in Australia last week for the women, I think, and that is that's really tough, and that's something that I've had to kind of try and get my head around, I guess, because it's not. I'm a very fair sort of person, and when it's not able to be fair, I find that really difficult. So trying to get the best out of a bad situation, I think, at the moment in the pandemic. But squash as a whole is the PSA tour has been growing for a number of years since the merger between PSA and WSA, so which is fantastic, and the sport's just going from strength to strength. And I think one of the other kind of aspects about the being the president, I think, as well, is I think you take a certain amount of not responsibility, but responsibility for the care and protection, I guess, of the players' welfare. which is part of it as well,
Yeah.
I think. And I think that's why I felt it was not just the right thing to do, but the right thing to do for me to become a trustee on the PSA Foundation board as well, which has a real one of the main goals of that is to provide support and help for players for their welfare, including their mental health. And I'm really passionate about that side as well. So I try and do quite a bit for that side. And then I guess the third prong as well is the just general squash. I guess you call it the business of squash, and I'm really interested in learning about that side and from the rest of sport as a business, and how squash can use the successes, failures, and experience of the other sports to actually grow and maybe, and it's something that I would potentially look to help and have as a career post actual playing career. Not something I'm set on, but something that definitely interests me at the moment. And I'm, if nothing else, trying to be a connector between experienced and knowledgeable people where I can. And, I think my network is definitely growing, and that's something I'm trying to help utilize for the good of squash. And I think I don't know if you saw so I introduced the board and our latest board member, Rowena Sama Sinhe, to the board last year, and she's just absolutely fantastic, and she's such an amazing addition to the sport, and she's already doing great things. So even if I don't personally have the experience myself, I think that's something I'm trying to help squash with too.
Absolutely. I think I have a lot more questions on what you've just talked about, but I would like to potentially have other people asking those questions when you do expand upon it even more at the Squash Summit, hopefully. For everyone watching or listening, wherever you are watching or listening, be sure to go and follow Sarah Jane Perry on all her socials, which will be in the description wherever you are. In an ideal world where, let's say, as ideal as the world could get, and if we still had COVID, I think us in Australia would welcome all of you with open arms to come and play and just keep playing as much as you want here in Australia and New Zealand if things were a bit more perfect. But hopefully sooner rather than later things get back into action. And I hope that the sort of conversations that you were talking about and the networks that enable you to grow the game, that's what we are looking to do with the Squash Summit as well. And, as I've mentioned, obviously you'll be speaking there. What are your thoughts on the summit? Are you I don't know. I'm just going to say, are you excited to be at the summit? I mean, it's a virtual conference, but, we're hoping it's going to be good. And based on the sort of responses we're getting, it's been really, really overwhelming in a way, because we didn't expect on such short notice to have all of this done within a month and a half. And now we're just, a little bit of time away. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Without telling me too much about what you'll be talking about, because we can save it for the summit itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great to see a online summit dedicated to squash, and I think you've heard from the rest of what I've had to say about my passion for squash and the game and growing it. So anything that is about knowledge sharing and getting ideas for how the sport can grow is just, in my eyes, fantastic. And having had a look at the other speakers and things like that, I'm excited to definitely to join in and listen to the other speakers. I think Marcos from he's got so many companies. Whichever one is it fun?
Interactive squash in this case.
Yeah, interactive squash. Wasn't sure if it's interactive squash or fun with balls. Which one? But he's an awesome character, and he will, he'll definitely bring his energy and things to the summit as well. And that's kind of what we need in squash. There's so many people out there that are just going around doing their thing and have had no kind of support from everyone else. And then if we can get everyone together as well, I think that's just going to be amazing. And hopefully I'm not too out of place with what I've got to, with what my additions, what I've got to say. It's going to be mainly positive. Don't worry. But the I feel just going to be slightly in awe of some of those other speakers for sure.
Yeah, look, I mean, that was always sort of the aim, to bring in all the perspectives, and I'm pretty confident that we'll have quite a few diverging perspectives on there. But then at the end of the day, that is what we hope to achieve, where we can bring all those different point of views together and create this place for discussion and engagement. And before we conclude, just very quickly, obviously moving away from the summits and your role with the PSA, but rather to you as a player, what are you sort of working towards in 2021? And what are there any personal targets that you set for yourself? Anything else that you might like to share?
I think personally, I always striving to just see how much I can get out of my squash thing. So my mind and my body, I guess. Those are my two tools, and just gonna try and see exactly how much you can get out of them. And hopefully, you can't help but have sort of targets and things like that. And I think last year I reached my highest ranking of 5, and and I kind of felt a bit of, for some reason, to me there was a huge difference between 6 and 5. Not quite sure why. I think there's a top 5 for some reason sounds like a number you would use, and not top 6. So that was a bit of I think it was a certain amount of relief to achieve that. But I think really I want to just see if there's any more in there over the next probably 3 or 4 years that my body's probably got left to give me, and I'm just trying to leave no stone unturned. And I think the pandemic weirdly gave me space to think about that. And once I got over the huge change of routine and everything, I think it's really brought a new perspective to my training and my squash. So hopefully that can manifest itself in some more tournament wins, and not have to wait another 2 years for the next one.
Absolutely. Look, I look forward to seeing you play, and wish you all the success. And of course, for everyone watching, be sure, if you want to hear more from Sarah Jane Perry, come over, register for the Squash Summit. And don't forget to follow her on socials, which I said earlier on are in the description below, wherever you're watching or listening. Look, Sarah Jane, it's been incredible having you on. Thank you so much for taking the time out. And we'll be chatting again soon at the summit, hopefully. So look forward to catching up with you then, but wishing you all the success, and hope that you're keeping safe over there in the UK.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I can't wait for the Squash Summit, and it will definitely get more in depth and